Welcome back to the classroom, ladies and gentlemen. I'm Eli Martyr, your teacher for today. Thank you so much for joining me once again here on the FreeMelon Society. The concept of intermittent fasting has grown immensely in the last couple of years. Now, as the trends for veganism, vegetarianism, ethical treatment for animals, and just overall better health choices, as these trends suffuse through the population, there are other offshoot trends that take small kernels of truth and interweave into those kernels of truth with expert legerdemain, a fabric of superstition and lies and deception, so that it becomes very, very difficult to extricate the truth from that newly formed idea. And like any good villain in any good movie, in these ideas, it's the truthful aspects of those ideas that attract people to their following. But it's the lies and deceptions woven into that truth that corrupt and taint and lead us away from nature. Now, in terms of eating behaviors, these offshoots go by many names these days. Ketogenic diet, the paleo diet, the low carb diet, the carnivore diet. Don't even get me started. Some of them much closer to the truth. The Ornish diet, plant-based whole foods diet, so it's a spectrum. Some are further from the mark, some are much closer to the mark. But of course, as we mentioned, today's topic is intermittent fasting, which is a concept that is based in absolute truth. But as with all things that cultural popularity touches, it has become tarnished and tainted with less than ideal concepts. One important thing to note, this video is an addendum to my previous video on food combining. So if you have not seen the definitive guide to food combining, I suggest you check that out. I'll post a card so that you can easily access it. And I briefly touched on natural human eating cycles at the end of the video, and so this is something that I wanted to add to that. So, fasting, as I'm sure I don't need to tell anybody in my regular audience, is nature's infallible, most wonderful, most perfect cure for all types of diseases, all types of ailment, and for the purging of all sorts of waste from the body that should not be there. If that is your goal, fasting is the go-to technique. Now, this idea, of course, finally started to catch on to the general public, particularly the health and fitness community, because anytime the body is calorically restricted, the inevitable outcome is greater and better health. This has been demonstrated countless times by numerous studies. In this study, it reads, caloric restriction, which has been investigated by gerontologists for more than 60 years, provides the only intervention tested to date in mammals, typically mice and rats, that repeatedly and strongly increases the maximum lifespan while retarding the appearance of age-associated pathologic and biologic changes. From the American Journal of Clinical Nutrition, caloric restriction extends lifespan and retards age-related chronic disease in a variety of species, including rats, mice, fish, flies, worms, and yeast. On and on and on it goes. Improves insulin sensitivity, reduces metabolic rate, blah, 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 blah. So, this is no longer a debate, right? Caloric restriction improves health. I'm not going to bore you with the science. I don't like doing it particularly. If you're a fan of my lectures, I don't spend a lot of time with science. I spend my time on just natural holistic intelligence and, the truths that are evident when you imply those faculties. So I don't even spend much time with the science, and I'm not going to. So, okay, what about this? Why don't I just give you the normal definition for intermittent fasting? We'll start with that. Intermittent fasting is a lifestyle plan whereby one only eats food during certain times of the day or week, while all time outside of these specified intervals is spent refraining from eating. The most common style of intermittent fasting is the 16-8 split, which means you are eating for only 8 hours, 6 to 8 hours during the day, and for 16 hours of the day, or 14 to 16 hours of the day, you're not eating. Okay, so that is the most common. There are other kinds of intermittent fasting. There's like the 1 day on, 1 day off. There's the 5-2 split, which apparently eats only 500 calories or less. How a natural organism would quantify that or measure that in any natural setting, I have no idea. But anyway, I'm focusing on the most common, the 16-8 intermittent fasting split for the purposes of this video. Now here comes the fun part, where I get to make up my own FreeMelon definition for intermittent fasting, and I can be creative and have some fun with my wording. So here is the FreeMelon definition of intermittent fasting. Intermittent fasting, a name given to a lifestyle pattern which would otherwise be a perfectly natural and instinctual feeding rhythm worked into the makeup of the human design, which, upon being adopted by the practitioner, serves as an excuse to continue eating unnatural, unhealthy, and immorally derived foods. Intermittent fasting, as a new title, serves as permission for one to eat indiscriminately of any type of food with no guilt, because the mind is put at ease by virtue of the unhealthy eating being done in the context of a, quote, radical health plan, unquote, that somehow voids the debt associated with bad eating. Something that I've noticed in general is that when people adopt this intermittent fasting lifestyle pattern, they naturally become very proud of the fact that they are intermittent fasters. They're healthy, they are intermittent fasting, they're on the right track, and they become very satisfied with the fact that they're doing this behavior. But as I said in the definition, what intermittent fasting is doing is it's simply allowing people ease of mind and ease of conscience by taking exactly what they've always been eating, condensing it into a shorter window, and not making any changes at all. And now all of a sudden, you no longer have to feel guilty about the cheesecake, about the lasagnas, about the pizzas and the whatever, because all of a sudden now you're doing it as an intermittent faster. You're suddenly much healthier, which is true to a certain degree. Right? But on the other hand, a poison is a poison regardless of how infrequently you take it into the body. If I intermittently drink a glass of olive oil, right, and I only do it every other week or so, it doesn't mean that olive oil is beneficial for me or good for me, even if I do it intermittently. Now, yes, it is true, because they are condensing their eating window, the average person will definitely experience health improvement just by virtue of the body being able to have more time to heal itself during the non-eating window, okay? But what I want to instill for people that are new to this is the deep sense of accomplishment people feel when they claim that they are intermittent fasters. You should understand that, and if you've seen my other lecture, you know this will be obvious to you, that the intermittent fasting style, the split, this is not something new. This is a perfectly natural, inborn human trait. It is a human instinctual eating pattern. So eating between 12 to 8 is exactly what is normal and natural. Not eating all the other time is exactly perfectly natural. So when these intermittent fasters, think they're all, they're on these radical health programs, what you should know about that, yes, it's fine, feel good about yourself because it is healthier. But what you should understand is that you're not on a radical health change. You have now graduated to the level of normalcy in terms of eating like a human being, right? That is the normal baseline behavior that should be standard across all human beings. This idea that you only eat in the body's very natural eating window, right? See, what makes intermittent fasting a little deceptive is the use of the term fasting in the term itself, intermittent fasting. Because of the explosive benefits of actual fasting, right? Just fasting on its own. When we use that term in conjunction with intermittent, normal human eating, right? The benefits of actual real fasting start to bleed into the idea of intermittent fasting. And sometimes it gives people false confidence in intermittent fasting, so that now they believe that they can just eat whatever with impunity in that window. And that's not the case. What you're doing when you're intermittent fasting is you're not really fasting. You're just in the normal state of rest between meals. That's it, really. Fasting, actual fasting, I would say you'd have to go beyond a day and a half to 2 days before your body actually starts manifesting the conditions and benefits that fasting does yield. So I wouldn't even call intermittent fasting. I mean, I would just call it normaling. Averaging, or typical human eating pattern. That's what it should be called. But because we associate the term fasting with it, people think that it's something that it's not. It's this title that we've attributed to something natural and normal, and we can get away with things like continuing to subjugate animals to slavery, torture, and rape, and eat them, and feel good about it still because we're intermittent fasting. It's not how this game works. And for all those that do intermittent fasting, it is a good thing. It is very healthy. The only thing is, I just want to attach to this, right? Attach to that idea that you are not in fact doing anything that is radical. Okay, that's the only point I'm making in this video. Intermittent fasting is not radical. It is something natural and inborn to the human being, as I made clear in the food combining lecture. Again, go watch that if you haven't seen it. And eating unnaturally, eating lots of refined starches and grains and cereals and meats and dairies, none of these things are good for you. You should not be eating them. And it doesn't matter if you are an intermittent faster and you eat these things, it is still not good for you. Right? You still should not be eating them. There is no excuse to support the subjugation and the slavery and murder and death and rape of billions of animals on this planet every single year for our own adulterated tastes, right? But as soon as we intermittent fast, then we feel good about it, and you shouldn't be, right? And the health and fitness community, they perpetuate this a lot, right? When it comes to putting on size and putting on muscle, right? There's a lot of benefit that can be gained by intermittent fasting or normaling, okay? But now, because we just have this shortened window, we just cram everything that we like or we've been conditioned to like, right, and change none of it and just jam it into this tight window. Now all is fine and dandy. Well, if we're concerned about the uplift of the human species and the growth of our spirits and growth of any sort of evolution, mental, physical evolution, we need to take that a step further, okay? And that's all I'm saying. So you need to observe proper human eating. And if you do that in conjunction with intermittent fasting, or as I'm calling it now, normaling, you will be much better off in your health and wellness and your contribution to the benefit of all because of the people that you will influence by doing that. All right, that's my spiel on intermittent fasting. Hope you enjoyed this, and I will see you guys next time on the FreeMelon Society.